Hello, this is Dr. Jacqueline Renishek, and I'm with DTP-Leadership Group. This is Hot Topic Bold Talk. I want to talk to you about how Trump floods the zone. Then he doesn't want us to pay attention to what's going on with voting rights, birthright citizenship, climate destruction. He emphasizes the war, so we won't pay any attention to anything else. And then what he's going to be surprised about is the tremendous resistance that is forming. So while Trump is doing all this and flooding the zone, we cannot ignore the things that are going on. So I want to welcome all of you today and to start talking to you about some different things today. Honestly, sometimes when I sit down and write these podcasts, I just think, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do, what I'm going to write next, because it's the same thing over and over again. It's one headline after another. It's another outrage, another threat, another crisis, another mess. This is not accidental. This is part of Trump's plan. The chaos is a way of having a strategy. See, if we become so much involved with the noise that he puts out and the headlines and the emergencies and the people getting, this or that and getting really tired, then he overwhelms us. But we cannot keep allowing that to happen. We have to see what's happening because it has become very dangerous, some of the things he's doing. It's not only about the war, it's about the rights to vote, it's the rights for people to be citizens of the United States, and so we have to pay attention. Now, I don't want to go over every headline because there's so many of them, it is ridiculous. Yes, there's a war with Iran, and it's getting worse, and there is no plan. Everybody knows there's no plan. You went through a very strange, rambling speech from Trump. There's no answers. There's only more questions after he gets through talking. Besides, he lies most of the time anyway, so you never know what the truth is. Oil prices are jumping, markets are shaky, Homeland Security funding is stalled, and then it's a constant thing about him always being dangerous because he keeps pushing back and demanding other things. And all of it really matters. So I want to talk about what's underneath the chaos. What's underneath it is we have some issues around voting rights. He did a ridiculous presidential order, and there's no legal right to it, but we have to look at it, and people are already responding. Civil rights leaders know immediately what he's doing. But we have the birthrights citizenship that's in the Supreme Courts. Thank God the Supreme Court looks kind of, there's a lot of them that are saying, no, no, this has been around for a lifetime in our country. Trump is totally destroying anything about the climate and energy. So our planet is being destroyed by what he does. And Iran, it is very dangerous. And I'm going to talk about some theories that I have read about that I think really make it clear what is happening. One of the things that is real is the resistance. And so, of course, the No Kings March certainly made some very strong statements. But I want to slow down for a minute and I want to look and see what the chaos is and how it's random so it becomes extremely messy. He loves mess and he loves drama and he loves controversy. One of the articles that I read, it said, he's a wartime president. He has to have a war between himself and the Democrats and all the people he hates. He has a war in Venezuela. He has a war here. He has a war there. So it's not surprising. He is constantly doing this because that's the only way he knows how to function. He cannot be a president of a country and resolve issues and build coalitions and build cooperative efforts. It's just not possible for him because that's not what he does. So he floods the market. He floods us with all kinds of information, and he wants us to be confused. And what happens is when he does that, is that he does things like he did in his last speech. It was insulting. It was personal drama. It was the latest attack on something. And it was reacting to all the things that are happening. And he reacted to the fact that the Europeans wouldn't help him with the war in Iran. Of course, he alienated all of them with his tariffs. So Trump is not just creating headlines. He is reshaping how power is grabbed in our country. He thinks he's bigger than our Constitution. He's bigger than Congress. He's bigger than the courts. He's bigger than any of us. And that's the real story. He sees all this and he wants us to separate out all these issues so we cannot really see what is happening. Now, I want to start with the voting rights because that is the foundation of democracy. So we do have a political movement which has started that is is a massive movement that is continuing to grow. But the thing about it is, his efforts to change voting rights is a way to change how he can persuade people to listen to him. And he doesn't want to build broad coalitions, as I said before. What he wants to do is to try to change the rules so he can still win. Because he knows he has created a horrific mess. So he's choosing not to build coalitions, but he's choosing to build a second path, where his latest move, of course, is his executive order. It's a power grab. This order would try to create a federal citizenship list to determine what is illegal to vote and who's illegal to vote. And it would interfere with mail-in ballots. Now, the funny thing I think is he doesn't realize that a lot of his voters that voted for him, they do by ballot because they're in rural areas or there are other places that they need to do that. But what he's trying to do is to try to control from the White House. And it's illegal the way he's trying to do this. It's not normal. It is not constitutional. It is not democracy. The Constitution does not give the president the power to run elections. Now, if you didn't know that, the president does not have the right to run elections. The authorities that run elections are the states and the Congress. Civil rights groups have moved very quickly against him with this particular order. They understand what is going on. They know that he's trying to affect election integrity. Now, you know what is sad is Republicans will say and talk about integrity, but integrity is not what they're talking about. They're talking about how can I restrict people from voting so I'll win. It's not about security. It's about excluding groups of people, and we know the ones they exclude, and I'll talk about them in a moment. And it's not about fraud. It's about the fact that the voters that are going to vote against him, he doesn't want them to be able to vote. This is hypocrisy. It's ridiculous. It is outrageous what he's doing. Trump and his family have used mail-in ballots for years. You know, it's very clear what the problem is. The problem is who is voting and who does he not want to have voting. So our efforts in the community are the ones that always get hit the hardest. Black voters, Latino voters, Asian American voters, Native voters, immigrants, students, elderly people, people with disabilities, Working people who do not have endlessly flexibility and resources to go vote somewhere. So it's all about power. And I think that there's some really clear stories that get buried in the legal language and the procedural details that the listeners hear. But if a president can't decide who gets to fully be counted in a democracy, then there's an issue with it. If he's the one that gets to decide who is counted in a democracy through our voting rights, then we are in danger and our democracy is in danger. That is why voting rights are not just one issue, they're many. They are the foundation of what he's doing. Because if he can eliminate a lot of voters, then he can stay in office, or his party can stay in office. The second thing that really bothers me is birthright citizenship. There has never been a day in America that if you were born in the United States, you became a citizen of the United States. But I don't think that citizenship should be a politically negotiated item. If you're born in the United States, then you're a citizen of the United States. The 14th Amendment says that if you're born in the United States, you're a citizen of the United States. Constitutional tradition has been for many generations the same thing. There are no loopholes. There are no birthrights in America is not some kind of liberal invention that he's claiming, that some liberal group did this. It's not a modern mistake. It is at the core of our constitutional principles. Trump is trying to restrict birthright citizenship by executive order. It's just another way for him to attack immigrants. So please know you can't separate out issues. You have to put them all together and look at how they relate to each other to fully understand what he's doing. You can't grant citizenship and then a president decides he wants to take it away. You can't decide who are the children that are born in America that are okay and they're fully American. I know, and thank goodness, there are several judges on the Supreme Court that are very skeptical, and I will go over some of those. And also, I have a blog on my website, so you can read the detail about this, since I'm not talking about all the detail that has happened with all the issues I'm presenting today. But I think it's very clear what the 14th Amendment says. There is precedent. Trump's legal argument is so narrow and it is so ridiculous that you can watch and read about some of the things that the Supreme Court members have said. See, birthrights go beyond the courtroom. We must never lose sight of the human meaning of this attack. Birthright citizenship is about belonging. It's not just about being a citizen. It's about knowing that you belong in America. That's the human element that bothers me so much. It doesn't matter whether America is a constitutional democracy. It is not an ethic hierarchy. And what's going on is very ugly. Then the attacks he is giving are not neutral. It is not colorblind. It is not detached from race. And the bottom line is he is targeting of course, immigrant communities, Browns communities, and Black communities, because they should not belong in America. It is a dangerous fight. I spent my life as an activist in the 1960s, fighting for things that I see now we have lost so much due to his actions and the mega Republicans and the Congress that's controlled by Republicans. So we can't have this president narrow citizenship, because we need to piece it all together and realize that voting rights on one side is citizenship on the other. Who gets to belong? Who gets to vote? That is not random. It is a pattern that has been created. Another thing is about the war in Iran. You don't want to get trapped in Trump's emotional drama about this war. He wants to look good. He wants to have a spectacle. He wants to dominate. He wants to have power. But his performance is massively inadequate about this. This is a conflict that can drag on and on. We have already been through this in America with other countries. He's creating instability. There's a rise in economic fear. We know that the closing of the straits by Iran has caused all kinds of problems for all of us because of the gas prices. And what he does is he reports this incoherent kind of things that do not exist. He doesn't realize that Iran is still threatening broader retaliation. The Strait of Hormuz remain a major issue. Oil prices have surged, markets have reacted, and the public is deeply uneasy. The unease is justified as far as I'm concerned, because it is stressful to live in this country right now. Polls show that Americans do not approve of this war. They do not want troops sent to the Middle East. Count the number of men and women that have been injured or have died in this war. Look it up, because they are the people that we need to be protecting as well. Prevent anybody from having to go and fight a war that is Trump's war. It's nobody else's. We have to understand the conflict. And one of the things that I read that I thought was so easy to understand is one of the writers for the conversation said it's an asymmetric resolve, an asymmetric resolve. And what it's really saying is that it's something that people don't understand. Asymmetric resolve means the following. A superpower can have all the military strength in the world, but if it is fighting a smaller adversary that believes it's fighting for survival, like Iran is, the smaller side may be willing to absorb far more pain. That is what asymmetric resolve means. We're the superpower. We're supposed to have the strength, but Iran is much smaller, but it believes in fighting because it needs to survive. And it will absorb more pain. And it'll keep going. And he lies all the time, because Iran has never established any kind of relationship with him to talk about ending this war. So we're the strong side, and we're trapped in a war that is going to go on and on. I lived through Vietnam. We've lived through Iraq. We've lived through Afghanistan. A larger power that believes overwhelming forces will quickly produce submission is not true. The weaker side keeps going because, from its point of view, losing is existential. The bigger power faces a choice: either accelerate or back down. And Trump, he'll probably abandon something. He'll find a way to abandon this whole thing and rationalize it. But the kind of leader who accelerates out of ego, and that's what we're seeing. He's extremely narcissistic. And that's what's happening. So it is very dangerous. You know, he never speaks about war with any kind of humility. It's all about him. He never speaks about war with a real sobriety about the reality of what war brings. He's not serious about the history that we have in America and how we've done this before. He thinks force will do it, and it's not. So he is trapped, and he's trapped you and me in a war with Iran. He doesn't want to be humiliated, and he wants to bleed nations for years. And yet, we're the nation that's going to be bled because of the war he's created with no plan. And I think a lot of Americans understand that, and that's the reason that we had the No Kings that was massive this time. People saying it's enough. It's not a weakness, and it's not a problem if we find ways to resolve what's going on. But again, he's a clear wartime president. He's got to create a war no matter where he is. He cannot build coalitions. The next thing that I want to talk about is Trump is attacking climate science. He's attacking the healthcare system. He's attacking clean energy. And he's attacking our future and the future of the young people in America. Climate destruction does not stop because another crisis occurs, like a war. You know, Trump's administration counts on people being so distracted by one emergency that they miss the quiet dismantling of protection for our planet and for the world we live in. The more that these, just like for an example in the Gulf now, there's no protection for the animals that we have living in our sea because he's taken away all those just recently. The findings underpinning major federal climate policies is a part of a legal process for addressing greenhouse gases as a threat to public health and welfare. Doesn't care. Our public health and welfare is being affected every day. Climate change is not abstract. It is a heat stroke. It is a wildfire smoke. It is floods. It is stronger storms. It is disease. It is a crop of stress. It's families losing homes. It is children breathing poisonous air. It is elderly people dying in heat waves. It is workers pushed beyond safe limits. So when Trump and his people act like greenhouse gases are not a danger, they are debating science, which tells us that is not true at all. They are denying that they are creating humans suffering, and he's doing it every day. Roughly $1 billion has been taken away from offshore wind development toward oil and gas. So yeah, our oil and gas companies are making billions right now because of his war. We desperately need clean energy expansion. It's not something that Trump even thinks about. He thinks about fossil fuel. They're literally punishing so many things. And they are truly what I consider to be an ideological vandalism. I've never seen a president become a billionaire in his term because he has done so many corrupt things. Not only that, he's vandalizing our planet. He's vandalizing our healthcare system. He's allowing all this to be very destructive. Trump has spent years mocking climate actions and mocking environmental concerns. So this is not new. But mocking something like climate change is not facing reality. The planet is still warming. The people are still suffering. And the future generations we are creating for them are consequences that this administration will probably never see. It is a moral failure, as far as I'm concerned, of Trumpism. There is no human element or caring about human beings. It is all about him. And when you have a moral failure as President of the United States, then there are things that become extremely cruel, which is present in America. And it's also going to be cruel to our future and what happens to our planet. Now, resistance is real. It's not imaginary. It's not symbolic. It's not tiny, and it's not a fringe. It is real. Authoritarianism feeds isolation. So when people get alone or they give up because they're alone and they simply can't see the truth because they feel so alone. But the No Kings demonstrations are evidence that millions of people are showing up. Thousands of rallies happened all across this country and beyond. Not just because of the numbers. The numbers this time are extraordinary. But the thing of it is, people do not have to feel isolated anymore because this protest is physical evidence that people are standing up against Trump, about his Republican Congress that's not doing anything. People disapprove of what's happening in the polls, but they are physically putting it together and saying, I'm going to go out on the streets and I'm going to carry signs and I'm going to let you know publicly that I reject authoritarianism. That is democracy, as visible as you can see it. I love the idea of no kings. It's at the heart of it. It goes to the heart of the issues. Trump is rude, he's corrupt, he's dishonest, he's unstable. He believes he's above restraint, above the law, Congress. He's above criticism. He's above accountability. He's above the people of America. And millions of Americans are saying no, no kings, not here, not now, not ever. This is the kind of resistance that really matters because it reminds people that they own the power. He does not. So millions move together and remember, democracy is not a spectator sport. Power is never absolute. Public courage can break the spell of fear. And one of the most important lessons of this moment is that Trump wants obedience, And the public is answering, not with obedience, but solidarity. Now, we cannot let exhaustion get us to the place where we stop paying attention to what's going on. We have to disagree. We cannot ignore. We cannot get exhausted. We must absorb as much as we can and fight as much as we can and monitor as much as we can. But exhaustion cannot be what decides the future of this country. He wants people so tired they'll stop resisting, so overwhelmed, or so battered by the daily chaos that we will stop protesting. Yet the No Kings marches have gotten larger and larger. And we're seeing very clear messages. We're seeing it in Florida with the elections just recently. We're seeing it all over the country. And one of the things I've learned over the years is I don't have to respond to things that happen. I can choose what I'm going to respond to and create a more balanced energy for myself. So I say we stay focused. Let's make certain people get to vote. Can people keep their constitutional right to be citizens? Can a president launch or prolong a war without real scrutiny? Can climate science be erased because it's inconvenient to fossil fuel politics? No. Can the public still gather, protest, organize, sue, speak, and push back? Yes, we can. So I want to bring all this together. Trump floods the zone. Yes, there's always another headline, another spectacle, another thing, another outrage, another time that he'll threaten something. And I know it's a struggle now to be a part of America. But we need to be clear who gets to vote in America, who gets to protect America, who gets to be heard in America. And democracy in America needs to belong to each one of us. So we need to fight. We need to understand the patterns that I presented to you. And millions of people have heard it. Many of you understand what I'm saying. Not only will voting rights be attacked, but we're going to protect them. Birthright citizenship is twisted into a political target. We're going to fight that. Not only another reckless, threatening something about our lives and stability. It's time for us to start talking about climate destruction again and accelerate the things that can happen when climate change is ignored. We do not want a president that acts like a king. So what we need to do is, in my estimation, we focus. That's the reason I do these podcasts. Let's stay informed. Let's stay morally clean. And let's not surrender our attention to chaos. Because we are not subjects of a king. We are citizens of the United States. And this country belongs to you and to me. So thank you very much for listening to me today. If you'd like to support my efforts, you certainly can provide $5 to Patreon a month, which will help me keep moving forward and providing the best information I can. And I hope that you appreciate what I have said today. Thank you so much.